contraception to me, I feel like is such a blanket disservice to women because we're not even teaching them about how their body works. Like that doesn't even have to be a moral thing,
Right.
It's just like a knowledge thing.
Right.
And so it's kind of appalling that we're here in 2023 and most people don't even know that they have like 4 different distinct things that should be happening, and everything in the menstrual cycle is necessary for health. And it's the only system that when it's functioning well, we don't want it to function well. We want to treat it when we actually need it. It helps with bone maintainment, thyroid, all other hormones. There's now a new study out. Women that took birth control in their teens are now showing greater signs of depression in adulthood. So it's a ripple effect.
Cancer, all like
Cancer, yeah. It's a ripple effect to where it's as simple as just education.
Welcome to Tulsa Time with Bishop Konderla. I'm Adam Minahan. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And over the last couple of weeks, we've asked you guys to send in reviews, and you guys have done it. And we're really grateful for that. I was joking with Bishop when I received this review. I sent it over to him. And basically, if we could summarize what we wanted to accomplish in this podcast, this person, I don't know if he's bugging our studio and listening in or what, but he actually hit it verbatim what we wanted to say. So Joe, his username is Joe Squatch, like Sasquatch, but Joe Squatch. I don't know what your last name is, Joe, but you're the man. You gave us 5 stars. And here's what he said. He says, love the variety of speakers on here for Eastern Oklahoma Catholic Podcast. He says, love the variety of speakers on here. Being able to go back and listen to speakers from a conference attended or one I missed is a blessing. I most enjoyed hearing from our bishop, though, and I only get to hear him speak at our parish or an event that I'm occasionally attending. So this podcast helps me to stay connected with my local diocese and community. Thank you very much. Bishop, we owe him a lot of money.
So he's speaking of the wider Eastern Oklahoma Catholic podcasts because he's talking about talks that he's been to that he can review.
Right.
So not just this Tulsa Time, but even beyond that.
Even beyond that. So yeah, so he says he loves those, but then specifically loves being able to listen to Bishop here on the podcast.
Yeah, and I enjoy being able to engage. I'm not really engaging with the people, but through their comments, through questions, through things that we're trying to do for the diocese and in the diocese. This gives me a way to be able to talk to people. You know, if I go to visit a parish, I get to see people, hello, how are you? I go to the hall, we have a dinner, I sit and visit with different people. They hear me in the homily, but that's about it. So this is a more verbose way of, being able to sit with people. This past weekend, I was with our Burmese families, many of our Burmese families. They're at St. Catherine Parish primarily.
St. Catherine, over in West Tulsa.
In West Tulsa. But the Burmese Catholics that we have in this diocese are Zomi-speaking Burmese. They come from one of a number of language groups. This group speaks Zomi. So the Zomi-speaking Catholics in the United States, of which there are numerous groups, ours is one of about, a dozen or so. In the summer each year, they get together somewhere for a Eucharistic Congress, a set of workshops, a weekend of visiting with one another, catechesis, workshops, Mass. This year, we were able to have one of the Burmese bishops with us, Bishop Lucius. We had probably about 6 or so Burmese priests, about 700 of the faithful.
Oh, awesome.
And they were many families. These are primarily young families, several children in the families. So it's an active group.
Sure.
And one of the things that I said to them at the final Mass at the beautiful cathedral in Nashville, this year we were in Nashville, was a quotation from Pope John Paul II, in which he said at one point that the future of the church and therefore of the world passes through the family. And what prompted me to say that to them was that wonderful tableau of this cathedral with 700 people in the pews, many of them children. And so seeing these beautiful young families who have come to these shores, you know, the country that they come from is under martial law, civil war, and they're coming to these shores and working hard and maintaining their faith and their culture and seeking success. And so I was just touched by the fact that they're going to grow and grow and grow. You know, when you see families, you're seeing the future. When you see these children, I tell that story about my parents, the two wedding photos, the photo on the day of their wedding when it's just the two of them, and they still look rested and optimistic. And then the photo from their 50th wedding anniversary when they're surrounded by 49 other people.
Yeah.
Their 11 in-laws, the children from the various marriages, and literally this community comes from this, from that union. And so that's why today we're happy to have Audrey with us, Audrey Stubblefield, who is our Director of Family Life Ministries. Is that how we say it?
Coordinator of Marriage and Family Life.
Coordinator of Marriage and Family
mouthful.
Life.
Yes.
And that's such an important part of what we do as parishes, as a diocese. It was a huge part of our last pastoral plan was marriage and family life. And it's becoming another, you know, a big part of this coming pastoral plan, particularly the concern for, and we did a whole series of episodes on what we were looking at, remote marriage preparation, which begins at birth, birth to engagement, and then the more proximate marriage preparation. And so we tend to lose sight of the fact that the remote marriage preparation is the building of the faith in a person such that when they're beginning to date, they're already doing that differently because they have a different set of goals in mind and a different knowledge base about why would I date anyone? What's the whole point of dating? It's not just to have fun and go on dates till I'm 40 or something. It has a purpose, and the purpose is to find a spouse because I think that God is calling me to marriage, and marriage is a specific vocation, not just a default that I do because I'm not going to be a priest or a nun. And if I believe all of those things, then I'm going to enter it differently. So then it's incumbent on the church to help couples with the resources. In the diocese here, we do the Engaged Encounter Retreat, and we, you know, in the parishes offer different kinds of marriage preparation helps and aids programs. We used the Focus Premarital Inventory a lot when I was in campus ministry. The Dicastery for Family Life in Rome has been promoting in the last year or so what is called the catechumenate, the marriage catechumenate. So if the catechumenate is a word that people may not always be familiar with. So catechumens are people who are not baptized yet, but who are seeking baptism in the church, typically adults, and associated with what was called the RCIA program, now called the OCIA program, the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults. So most parishes will know that. They'll have heard about the RCIA and so forth. The idea of the catechumenate is that someone who's not a Christian at all, not baptized at all, needs a community of people to walk with, to grow in the faith with, to learn with, so that they achieve different levels of knowledge and conviction and spiritual maturity and growth on the way to being ready for baptism. You can't just take someone off the street who doesn't know anything about the faith and baptize them, because we don't believe in magic. We believe in the grace of the sacraments, but the grace of the sacraments require in us a certain response. And if you don't know what it is, it's hard for you to make the response. So the dicastery is recognizing that similarly for marriage, we can't simply take people off the street and marry them and expect that they're just going to do fine. Often they do. The majority do. But it's hard, and it doesn't need to be as hard as it is. I was speaking to the group the other day in our pastoral planning. We consider in the church marriage and religious vocations to be parallel tracks in a sense. Marriage is a sacrament, holy orders is a sacrament. Imagine if we were taking seminarians, accepting them, and then ordaining them 6 or 8 months later. Mm-hmm. The kind of fit we would be in.
Chaos.
Yeah.
The kind of chaos that would ensue. Because we recognize that for a man to be able to fulfill the obligations of the priesthood requires not merely book knowledge, there's a fair amount of that, but conversion and growth and spiritual maturity and so forth. But nonetheless, a couple comes into the parish office, they have a date in mind, 6 to 8 months to a year later. Let's get that date on the calendar. We have about 3 or 4 touch points for them in terms of formation, and then we expect them to fulfill the duties and obligations of marriage.
And flourish.
And is that really fair? Should we do more? Who immediately will object?
Right.
The couples.
Right.
Yep.
But there's that lack of awareness. There's an assumption that marriage is somehow, what? Lesser, easier. We already know how to do it. Something. But is it really? I mean,
No.
Nope.
is it really? So all of that is a little long-winded, wordy, verbose segue into introducing Audrey and the work that she does here at the diocese and in the parish too.
And we had, the last 2 weeks we had Sister Maria Josefa here discussing a whole host of different things, and who's a religious sister of mercy. Mm-hmm. And I get an opportunity to work with you here at the Chancery, Audrey, and right down just the hall. But maybe for those who have not had a chance to be introduced to you, like, who are you and what's your connection? Is there a connection with the Religious Sisters of Mercy?
Yeah, there is. So my name again is Audrey Stubblefield. I am from Colorado, and I had discerned in college with the RSMs.
Oh, okay.
In Denver.
I don't think I even knew that.
Yeah, it's a neat. I'm going to do the brief version because it's pretty long. But I discerned with them, and I went to nursing school at the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley. And when I was finishing up, this was in 2010. And so the market had really plummeted. There were no new grad nursing jobs, especially in a place like Denver where people want to move. And so I talked with them because they're doctors, nurses, canon lawyers, very educated. And they were like, oh, have you ever heard of this hospital in Tulsa? Looks like they're hiring. And I was like, well, great. Looks like I'm moving. So ended up working in the NICU there at St. Francis at the Children's Hospital here locally for about 10 years. Met my husband here. He's a convert. I'm a cradle Catholic. And
your husband, Corey?
Cody. Yeah. The very first, you can tell the story. That's fine. I'll let you own it.
Bishop, one of the things that it was a very humbling moment for me coming into working for the diocese. I'm now in charge of the EOC. I've met
proofreading.
Yeah. And I had met the Stubblefields years ago,
Yeah.
and they're good friends of ours. And we did an article, and they had a picture of them was on there, and I captioned it, Corey and Audrey Stubblefield. And like, I did it. Like, it was me that typed that in, and it went to print. And she was just so gracious. She didn't really mention anything about it. Of course, I kind of died inside a little bit myself, being a perfectionist. But anyway, so I jokingly call him
Corey.
like Corey, as
But he noticed it.
Oh
He
yeah,
noticed it,
it.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the only thing he remembers from anything I've ever written.
So anyway,
Yep.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
So
Cody's a great man.
Cody is from Stillwater. He grew up with Father Pratt,
Oh,
Father
that's
Michael
right.
Pratt. They were best buds. And so he ended up back here in Tulsa, and Father Pratt introduced us, I don't know, 10 years ago, and the rest is kind of history. We have 4 kiddos, ages 6 to 1-year-old twins. So my summer is a little bit crazy right now, but going great. But yeah, the RSMs were just a huge influence on me coming to Tulsa. And then I knew some of them years ago when I was here, and then kind of the group has turned over. And taking this job, I reintroduced myself. And it's a really great, just a really awesome group of Religious Sisters of Mercy over there. So, yeah.
So we're going to talk about today NFP, kind of piggybacking off of what we did last week. We kind of broached the topic of the new clinic that's coming in, the Marian Medical Clinic from St. Francis.
Yep.
But I think we were putting it in the context of the wider issue of marriage and marriage formation. One of the programs that we'll also be launching in the diocese and other dioceses have to one degree or another is called, one of the ways to describe it is a first 5-year of ordination formation program. It's the idea that we want to surround our newly ordained priests with some ongoing formation, because now that they're in ministry, they're encountering all the things they've been studying about. But when you encounter it in real life, then you have even a deeper understanding. And similarly, though, something to help newly married couples with. I have said before that an image in my mind for newly married couples is a couple standing at a wharf. We're going to put them on this boat. Their wedding is the launching out to sea. But when you go out to sea, you don't know what you're going to encounter out there. And if you're going out all alone, it's worse.
Yep.
But if you're going out with a group, and you know that you're going out with a group, and you know that there's going to be resources and ways to be helped out there, then that's better. So one of the key goods of marriage is precisely children. It is true that not all couples are, in fact, able to have children, and thus there's a sadness, particularly for couples who struggle with infertility. And one of the things that NFP helps us with is precisely that. And we certainly want to pray for and support couples who are struggling through that. I guess the bigger umbrella is what we would refer to as generativity. A married couple needs to be able to be generative. They're typically going to do that with their own children and family. If they're unable to have children, they can still be generative in various ways. The love that binds them together with God provides a grace and a power, a optimism, a hope, a desire to be able to overflow into other people's lives in various ways. And so then there can be lots of creative ways to do that. But NFP fits into that larger good of generativity that I think sometimes the culture loses sight of. Anecdotally, I've heard any number of times that parents of couples preparing for marriage or newly married would like to instill in them the idea that, look, don't have children right away. You need to take time to get to know each other, whatever, all the different kinds. It's just a kind of a caution towards children, as opposed to the biblical model that children are a blessing.
Absolutely.
And in some ways, children, far from getting in the way of the couple, help the couple to experience themselves in a new way as the mother of my child or the father of my child. You're my husband, you're my wife, but now I also know you as the other person in my life who loves this human being or two or three that we have created as much as I do, and who helps me with this person. And that's even a different facet of that married love.
Absolutely. I would say becoming a parent more so than even getting married. I mean, that was huge. That's the beginning of your family. You choose that person and you keep choosing them, but you learn to do it in a lot of other ways once you have children too. And that, I mean, it's like a whole metamorphosis as a person to welcome children.
We found my mother's St. Joseph Missal that she used when she was in nursing school. So before meeting Dad and getting married. And she had handwritten in the cover of the Missal the prayer to St. Gerard, who is the patron of mothers wanting children. And it was such an insight into where her mind was even before she was married. She was thinking about herself as a mother and wanting to raise children. While dating Dad, how did that go? She asked Dad how many children he thought he might like for them to have. And I think he said 3 or 4. And he said, how many would you like to have? And she said 12. And they had 12.
Wow.
So
She knew.
So they compromised and they had 12.
They compromised right down to exactly what she wanted. I said at her funeral that he could not complain because he knew going in what her plan was. So he had the out, but he didn't take it. So
That's right.
But precisely the point is that what's marriage for? So say that's part of what couples need to think through. Why are we getting married? Because we love each other. Well, you could love each other and not get married. What are you getting married for? What's it to do? You could ask the same of a priest. It seems we know the answer to that. Why is he becoming a priest? Because he loves God. But that doesn't explain what he's becoming a priest to do. What if he became a priest, but he didn't really like to celebrate Mass all that much, or he felt like he had reasons that he shouldn't celebrate Mass too much? But we would all think that, I certainly would think that was very weird.
Yeah.
We would say he doesn't understand what priesthood is about.
Yeah.
And so the same in terms of marriage. What are you getting married for? To love each other and to raise a family. So it's not extra, it's
built in.
It's built in, yeah. Now, NFP, we were saying with Sister, we were using that more expansive term of natural procreative technology, recognizing that natural family planning is a umbrella term, and natural procreative technologies are umbrella terms describing knowledge and skills, and in some cases even surgical interventions and hormonal treatments and so forth, that couples can use to both understand and manage their fertility.
Yep.
The church thinks that it is up to the couple to determine how many children they think they can manage and when they think to have the children, recognizing that they are a blessing from God. We live in a contraceptive age. We're, 60 years or so now into having reliable contraceptives?
Reliable.
Yeah, reliable contraceptives. And so we don't believe that contraceptives are for the good of the marriage, but rather they work against the good of the marriage. And so what else then do you do if you're not going to simply have a child every time a child comes? If you don't think you can manage that, I think we talked a little last time about the responsible reasons. Sometimes couples have responsible reasons why they should delay having another child or that kind of thing. So that's what we use the NFP with.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a great description. Do you mean just talk about a little bit what NFP is?
Yeah. That'd
So
be good.
another term, what was the term you used, Bishop? Natural
procreative
technologies. Another one is fertility awareness, which is another umbrella. So it's really understanding, it's essentially body literacy for the reproductive health of a woman, which in this day and age, and especially as I was growing up, that a lot of my age was just put on birth control because you had acne or you had to take Accutane or different things. And we never really understood how everything works or why. And God has really created it very beautifully, the male and the female body, and how they complement and are just completely different. Where the man's testosterone is just the same, just about, unless there's a health issue. The woman in her monthly cycle, if she's having them, which she should, because ovulation is a sign of health, it does a lot. There's four main hormones that kind of control everything happening within the 4 phases of the month, which that sounds like a lot to fit into a month, which it is. So it's identifying through natural biomarkers, which I'll get into in a second, identifying that and being able to identify a fertile and infertile phases. And then what NFP is natural family planning. It's if you are going to use it to space children or delay, it is essentially a passive approach where you're not preventing pregnancy as compared to contraception or sterilization are actively contracepting. NFP is we're still open to life. We're not doing anything to prevent it. We're just choosing to come together at a time of the month that is most likely infertile.
Right.
Which is a big distinction.
I think a lot of people get there, and absolutely, like NFP could be, it's pretty much a moral neutral, from my understanding. The theologians in the office can correct me, but
No.
you can use it selfishly, you can use it carelessly, thoughtfully, prayerfully, but how God designed the woman and her cycle is that actually when you are ovulating, that is when you are more likely to want to have a child.
Yeah.
So it kind of designs it in a way that we will continue on the human race.
Yeah.
So it is a sacrifice, but it postures the couple to be very generous with discerning that. And it can be, one of the benefits is daily, if not monthly, weekly, but most of the time daily communication on where are we at, like finances, health, mental health, job switches, our other children, their health issues. There are going to be times in a marriage, pretty much any marriage, that there's going to be times you cannot come together. So in a way, it's a practice for that when the hard times come, or you're put on bed rest for twins, or someone has a health issue, or you work out of town. Like there's, life just throws a lot of natural circumstances where you're going to have to sacrifice for each other. And I think it really puts the couples on the same page, and it doesn't put the burden of remembering to take a pill or the health issues that can occur with all different sorts of contraception.
I've always thought that a succinct way of describing the difference between contraception and any of the NFP methods is what the couple is not doing. And so in using NFP during the fertile time, if they have discerned that this is not a good time for us to try to conceive a child, they're not coming together. They're not using their sexual faculty in view of wanting to cooperate with what God has built into us, into our fertility, and not wanting to block that in any way. We're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with contraception, we are still using that anytime we want, just because it's a good of marriage. But we're willing to turn off, do something active to turn off the possibility as much as we can, in order to be able to still have the sexual relations anytime we want. And so those are different things. They're seeking different ends. They posit a different relationship with God.
I think I heard a quote. I think it's G.K. Chesterton. It sounds witty like G.K. Chesterton. Maybe not his quote, but it says, birth control neither promotes birth nor control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's true. And I would say I know people with any kind of contraception. I know of someone that has become pregnant while using it. Like it is, there are, I mean, unless you have a hysterectomy, essentially, that's it. But there's a whole, I think with NFP, it's a beautiful thing to use if you really need it. And if you don't want to, that's totally fine.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. There's other ways that the body naturally spaces children, like if you're breastfeeding.
Right.
But also if you, like I learned NFP, I've done all the methods. So that's why I'm like, I'll be a resource because I've done it. Yeah. And I learned it when I was single, wasn't dating anybody because I wanted to know. And then I learned through using that I have one of those hormones is low. And so I have to supplement that hormone in my pregnancies from that because I've had a couple losses. Mm-hmm. And, but it has taught me a lot about just my own health. Mm-hmm. And it's not even just reproductive health, it's kind of everything. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, if one of the things we'll get into with the clinic a little bit that's coming is that knowing about these things, they can help with depression, migraines, irregular cycles. Maybe you don't know you have endometriosis or PCOS. Like there's a lot of indicators that these biomarkers, which do you want me to go into the biomarkers a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a beautiful thing that you're talking about, right? Like, cause it's such it's a natural holistic aspect.
Yep.
As you go into the biomarkers, maybe are these natural family planning methods, are they similar to the ones that we heard about in the 1990s or that our parents kind of joke about nowadays? Like, what maybe
so the old terminology is calendar or rhythm method, or what did you call it?
Roman roulette.
Roman roulette.
No, they are not. So that was taking that was expecting that every woman has a 28-day cycle and she automatically ovulates on day 14, which if you use that, more than likely you're not in that group. Mm-hmm. It may be day 12. It may be day 17 if you're even ovulating or it's normal. And more than likely it's not 28 days. Somewhere between 24 to 36 is normal. So these biomarkers actually show you the window of fertility. And then a trained teacher, we would recommend that you always have instruction through a teacher. Mm-hmm. It is just more helpful to have someone that can reaffirm what you're seeing and all of that. But the biomarkers, they all indicate a different, essentially, hormone that's activating or decreasing in the body. So they can be basal body temperature, not basal the plant. Basal meaning the body's.
I like how she looked at me when she like she knew that's what I was thinking.
Tell a joke here. So your body's base temperature after it's been asleep for a certain amount of hours. So that's important for people. I was working night shift and I couldn't use that one anymore because I think you probably could, but I just wasn't disciplined to do it. So. But that'd be a question for an instructor. So there's one where you can, the body temperature will go up with ovulation. And so you can see that if you're doing it at the same time every day, in the morning usually, or when you wake up. There is, we'll call it cervical mucus. I know, not the word anyone wants to hear, but the body creates this, essentially a pathway for for sperm to come and meet the egg, and then you have a baby. And if it's not present, that can't happen. So you have to have that healthy sign. And if that's not healthy, that's a concern. You can test with LH, or luteinizing hormone, OPK strips, which is just a urine test. You can test with a Clear Blue monitor. So these are all the different ones are the Clear Blue monitors, Marquette. Couple to couple is symptothermal. So that's symptoms of cervical mucus and temperature. You've got FEMM, which is the OPK strips and mucus. You have Creighton, which is just mucus and very in depth. Billings, which is mucus as well. And so they're all, and then there's Boston cross-check method, which is kind of everything. So all of these, you should be able to find one that works for you and fits into your situation in life, whether that's trying to conceive or just maintaining or postpartum, breastfeeding, all of those. And now in Tulsa, we have all of those available, except for Boston Crosscheck, but that's kind of a specialty one. But and online all of these are offered online as well.
It's a wealth that it seems like it's in a locked up treasure chest.
Right.
It's a treasure, but we don't know so much about it. We're still trying to get that word out. It's, in my mind, it's very relatable to what astrophysicists talk about in terms of the way that the universe is created, and we see the intricate interworkings of things like the weak magnetic force or the expansion of the universe and the speed of that expansion and the dark matter and all these things, that the intricate inner workings of those things give evidence of a mind. And when we think about how a woman's body works and the intricate and complex interworking of the way it works, and then that works together for and with her husband to create a being that will never not be, it's evidence of a beautiful mind. But the other piece that's missing, I think, on the opposite side of the coin in a sense, people often also don't understand how contraceptives work. Simply that the doctor prescribed this contraceptive to me and now I don't get pregnant. But the actual biomechanical way that it works has some counter signs to it. It is closing down or covering over these signs that could be used to find out, why am I having problems?
Yep. And I would say, I just read this morning that the FDA has approved over-the-counter birth control pills now, oral contraceptives. So what this kind of shows me is we are just continuing by just willy-nilly prescribing for no good reason. And one of the physician sisters will tell you she's never prescribed birth control because she has never needed to. She can treat everything else other ways that are true problems.
Well, and I think for women to understand that if there's, for example, you mentioned acne or other kinds of reasons why contraceptives might be prescribed, not just to avoid pregnancy.
Sure.
Those are all based in something that's not working correctly.
Yep.
And there are ways, that's what this whole technology is about. There are ways to actually understand what is actually not working correctly and to treat that so that I don't need to take this cocktail of hormonal medicine that does more than I need it to do, because I have one specific issue. I need to treat that. So I've always thought that if you can have a conversation with your doctor and ask them what specifically is wrong, and if they can't tell you what specifically is wrong, keep digging.
Yeah, find a new doctor.
keep digging, because they may not know or they may not want to find out. But it's not necessary to use. And then in terms of trying to avoid a pregnancy, that's why we're here. That's what we're talking about, is that it's not necessary to avoid of pregnancy because God has already taken care of that in the design of the bodies that are involved in the marriage.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the knowledge and the literacy that NFP provides for single people, married people, postmenopausal, like the whole spectrum. We've even done a teen retreat with mothers and daughters, and it was just, it was just great information. Then they can go and they can talk, and the mom can be the expert in her daughter's life there. But we offered the information to them both, and then they had time to talk. But it's such a contraception to me, I feel like, is such a blanket disservice to women because we're not even teaching them about how their body works. Like that doesn't even have to be a moral thing,
Right.
It's just like a knowledge thing.
Right.
And so it's kind of appalling that we're here in 2023 and most people don't even know that they have like 4 different distinct things that should be happening. And if ovulation's not occurring, or you're shutting that down or thinning the uterine lining, like everything in the menstrual cycle is necessary for health. And it's the only system that is functioning, that when it's functioning well, we don't want it to function well. We want to treat it when we actually need it. It helps with bone maintainment, thyroid, all other hormones. There's now a new study out showing that women that took birth control in their teens are now showing greater signs of depression in adulthood. So it's a ripple
Isn't
effect.
cancer all like breast
Cancer,
cancer?
yeah.
Breast cancer's-
It's a ripple effect to where it's as simple as just education. It's beautiful that that's what the church recommends.
Yeah. My understanding was that the hormonal contraceptive works by causing the woman's body to think it's pregnant.
That can be part of it. It's twofold where it will give higher levels of estrogen to prevent ovulation. But they used to give a higher dose. Now they give a lower dose. So ovulation can still occur. So conception could still occur, but it also thins the uterine lining. So if you don't have a healthy uterine lining, which is developed every month with your hormones, you could be conceiving a child and not even knowing and just passing it with your bleed, which with the typical hormone oral contraceptives, when you bleed, you don't actually have a period. It's just a withdrawal bleed because they wanted to make people feel better about what they were taking. So it was like, oh, I should, but it's not actually a true growth. Not everything's happening the way it should. And so we're seeing effects of that. The benefit, or not the benefit, what's interesting is that in some ways the secular world is starting to see this.
Yeah.
I see more things on social media or whatever, just even in, other frames of mind that are like, oh, this is not, like, we can do better than this. We can just have self-knowledge and treat a lot of these things instead of covering them up.
But I think there are some conditions that would be abnormal conditions that if you're taking a contraceptive, they will go away, not because they've been cured,
True.
but because the body no longer is doing that
Yep.
part of the cycle. But then you're going to take that for how long? And then later when you do want to have a child, you're going to quit taking it, but then that problem is still there, maybe worse now.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a great question for one of the medical sisters. But from my knowledge as a nurse, it's like PCOS and endometriosis, which will cause problems with fertility and can go into can cause cancer down the road. Those we can give oral contraceptives to just kind of cover up the symptoms, but we're not actually treating the underlying issue.
Yeah.
Now, Audrey, we've used a lot of different terms here today, and there's probably some of these terms are new to some people, and maybe they can go back and listen to it again to catch all and write down all of the terms. But for like further resources and these kind of things that we can't get into today, but like where should people go to learn more about this kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I'd say for NFP in general, just on the whole concept of it, the USCCB has a good page on just the general information, kind of what it is. The Catechism has the teaching on it for that side of it. For the nitty gritty of this, I would say there's a couple websites, and you could type in fertility awareness based methods, natural family planning. You could type in any of the methods that I mentioned earlier. There is a good website called naturalwomanhood.com, or maybe it's .org, that you can go in there and take a quiz on what method would be good for me. Like, if, it takes into consideration those things. What kind of lifestyle do I live? Do I have a regular sleep cycle? What am I more comfortable with? You could do that. You are welcome to email me at the Diocese. It's audrey.stubblefield@dioceseoftulsa.org. Can that go in the show notes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Or call me. I want to be your wealth of knowledge just to direct you to the right person. And then there is fertility awareness based methods.org. I'll get it for the show notes, but there's another great website that just does an overview on more the scientific side of all of this.
And then we'll also, the other piece of our little episode here is to talk about our clinic that's coming, because that's, of course, also going to be our big resource.
Yeah, this is really exciting. So about, a year and a half ago, I met with some of the Religious Sisters of Mercy over at St. Francis. And one of the sisters, Sister Gianna Marie Savage, who is a family physician, she and Sister Mary Gretchen Hoffman, who's also a family physician, both took a class in FEMM, which stands for Fertility, Education, and Medical Management. So they, as a physician, they took the medical management side. There are other methods that have upstream of medical intervention, NAPRO being connected to Creighton, which they are more, they have really great protocols for surgeries. They've done innovative new surgeries that instead of having to seek things like IUI or IVF that are considered immoral, because they replace, not supplement, the marital act, they can help the body with they're like endometriosis specialists, and they have really great surgeries. We don't have that here, but we have great referrals that are pretty close. So the sisters, they were trained in the medical management for FEMM and have been kind of doing it in their own practice and building it into St. Francis's health system. And Sister Gianna Marie asked if she could do a one-day, half-day clinic just to kind of see. And everyone was on board with that. And it has grown. And so we will be opening, the official launch will be September 8th on Mother Mary's birthday. And so Bishop will bless our little space. We're hoping it will grow. If anyone is interested in that, you let me know. Email me. I joke that on my headstone, I'm going to put, I know a guy. That's what I'm good for. I can connect you to the right person.
Depending on the guy, that'd be
Depending on the guy, yeah.
That's
But so with this clinic, what they're looking into is a holistic approach to women's healthcare. We're going to teach various methods of NFP. We have 6 women going through to train to be teachers, and some of them are also trained in Marquette or Billings or Creighton. And so we have any woman is welcome to come, even if we can even see teens down to when they've started their menses. So, and then all the way through perimenopause, menopause, because there are conditions that show up there too.
True.
That if you don't know that that's not normal,
right,
someone's going to say, okay, but the sisters and then our other clinician, Sarah, that will be starting, they are looking into those things deeper. Sorry, I got lost on a tangent there, but it is if anyone is welcome to come, any woman that has had no fertility awareness education or tons of fertility awareness education. They've had patients that have come that have gone to 10 different specialists and not found out what's going on. with why do I feel this way? Why do I have just terrible fatigue and brain fog and depression?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 32, and being like, oh, your hormones are really out of whack. So they're looking beyond the normal lab values. They're using up-to-date research and just kind of a mashup of all of these things to assist women to becoming really reaching their full potential. Some of that it's achieving pregnancy, helping them figure out, why are you not ovulating? There's something wrong
Mm-hmm.
if you're not ovulating. So they're looking deeper into that. What else on that one? Trying to think.
Well, it's an outgrowth. I mean, it's a natural outgrowth of science and scientific research. But some of the inspiration from this comes from Humanae Vitae.
Absolutely.
Comes from Pope Paul VI encyclical, in which he reaffirmed the Church's belief that to use contraceptives in marriage would be contrary to the good of marriage and could even be sinful for the couple, and then encouraged doctors and medical researchers and technicians to begin to really in earnest study and unlock these beautiful, mysterious processes that God has built into the body. They are very complex and not obvious. When you start talking about hormones and the effect they have on small physical structures,
Yep.
and even now you're talking about, for example, mental and emotional state of someone. So it has taken some very serious research and researchers to come to where we are now. But now we have a lot more to offer than
Absolutely.
we ever have had before. And so it's incumbent on us to try to help people know that so that they can hopefully come to our clinic and make themselves aware.
Yeah. And I'd say I'm very grateful to St. Francis and their team, the
Amen.
sisters, for being open to being bold and trying something new.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop has had undying support for this, and that's been something that has been on your heart for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When I came into this job about 2 years ago, that was one thing, like, where the people are out there. We just have to find them and connect them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been fun to do,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, for me, and just introducing all these great people. It'll have a very mission-minded mindset, but just really good medicine
Yeah.
and education. And we're excited because, moms and women, you don't have to be a mom to come see us, but like, if you're the mom of a family, you kind of direct the cruise ship here on everybody else's healthcare in a way. And so there's great potential to expand. And so it's all been God's divine providence. He has provided every step of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And we are just excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Audrey, you've been such you underplayed your cards a lot. You've been such a blessing to the diocese and such an asset to the chancery and to the diocese, with the hospitals, but also with parishes, even parents who are single parents. I mean, you have a wide scope of range that you've been helping out the diocese, and I know that I'm very grateful for you. I know Bishop's very grateful for you, and there's a lot of people here that we're grateful you're on our team.
Well,
And she does real estate on the side.
Yeah.
Just a jack of all trades here. No, I'm humbled to be here. I was very honored and humbled that you asked for me to come on. And I just want to be a resource. When I prayed about taking this job, I really felt the Lord saying, I just want to pour mercy onto married families and couples. And knowing that like, doesn't have to just be married couples and families, like also single people discerning. It's all connected. And those are our future families, or they're a daughter, a son, or a friend. And I just feel everything has woven itself together to get me to here. And I feel like I have a job to do, and who knows what's next.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Well, Audrey, we'll have to have you on again sometime in the near future.
Yeah, especially once we're open and
Once we could announce more, ittle be great.
One more time, your email address.
Yep, audrey.stubblefield@dioceseoftulsa.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Tulsa's Time with Bishop Konderla. I'm Adam Minahan. We'll see you next week.